morning, all. We're live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Instagram. Good friend of mine is emailing here as I'm hitting the go live button, telling me I'm a fool. Near as I could tell, I didn't get to read the full email, so that's good vibes, right? That's good vibes for the beginning of a show. What else have I got to do? I do have to warn everybody. This is day 7. Day 7 of no carbs, no sugar for me, and my body is in full revolt after 59 years of living completely on sugar and carbs. Oh, what a week. What a week it has been. Okay, we're live on everything. I got comments up. Let's check Instagram. We're good. I've got my notes. Can we get at it? April 30th, episode 346. Welcome, everybody, to Mornings with Scott, the best damn business show for medium and small businesses on the planet. Markets, don't look at the markets today. If I can steal that line from Scott Adams, don't look at your markets today. Don't log into your portfolio. You're not going to be happy. You will not be happy. Lots of terrible economic U.S. news. GDP negative in the first quarter of 2025. That's the first time the government has admitted there's been a negative quarter. Do you remember in the Biden administration, we changed the definition of a recession to avoid all that? And everybody agreed, yeah. Sounds good on Instagram. Thank you. Thank you, Ashley. You're saying it's good on Instagram, but you're listening on Facebook. So that's weird. But thank you anyways. So yeah, do you remember we changed the definition of a recession before? And we decided, no, it's not about negative GDP and consecutive quarters. It's more about labor, and the labor is good because the government's hiring everybody. That's what happened under the Biden administration. Well, now we got some data that everybody's buying into, and it's negative. Negative 0.3% in Q1 of the GDP, and driven by a surge in imports from companies front-running tariffs. So they didn't do anything domestically. Instead, they bought a bunch of stuff from foreign customers, foreign parts of their supply chain, and tried to front-run the tariffs. And don't you love what economic commentators say? Hey, the market's down today and it's because of this. They have no idea. They're just like picking some random thing out of the universe and saying we're all freaked out about it. They can call around to the trading desks and traders can tell them, yeah, we're worried about that. But, everything is so large and complex in the economy. You can't just pick one thing. But this is what they say, front-running tariffs. If that were true, this should reverse, right? When they run out of that inventory, and companies have to start buying again, they're going to go back to their normal supply chains because it's difficult to change your supply chain in a very short order. And we should have a boom. We should have an absolute boom in GDP. You think that's going to happen? Also contributing to the negative GDP was a big decline in government spending. Government spending was down 5.1%. Remember, the All In podcast guys have been talking for 2 years during the Biden administration that roughly 60% of the U.S. economy is tied to government support, whether it's directly a government agency, an NGO, funneling out cash, government grants and reliance, anything along those lines, about 60% of the entire economy. So if the government cuts back, that has a big impact on the economy for sure. So 5.1% decline in U.S. government spending, probably mostly due to DOGE. Consumer spending grew 1.8%, which is good, but way slower growth than historical. Inflation was also released this morning, up to 3.6%. Is that a temporary thing for tariffs? Who the hell knows? So we'll see. We'll have to keep an eye on that. There were about, 60-odd thousand jobs created, but that was 50% of what was expected. So nothing is good on the economy right now as we go through this air quotes transition. So what does that mean? Equity markets are down, crude down, gold down, Bitcoin down, and the Canadian equities are down as well. So as I said, Don't do it. Just don't look at your portfolio this morning. What do we got here? Mark Carney. Mark Carney, this is our first show since the federal Canadian election. Poilievre, the conservative leader, versus Mark Carney, the liberal leader, the incumbent. If you are a US listener and you don't recall from this show, Mark Carney is the Kamala Harris of Canada. They swapped out, did the hot swap on Justin Trudeau and brought in Mark Carney. He obviously has more of a resume than Kamala Harris. That's not what I mean by that comparison, but just the fact that he was swapped out, not elected, became prime minister, just on a hey, you're up, you go next, but now he's won an election for real, a really close election, way closer than I thought it was going to be, both in seats and popular votes. And for the U.S. audience, when I say seats, think electoral vote versus popular vote, same sort of thing. And what was interesting is it was really, really a two-party race. The other parties, including the NDP, which are sort of the third-party socialist party, really got wiped out and did not have a very good night. So the globalist anti-carbon agenda won over the Canada First agenda. Not that I think Canadians believe either side of that pitch, but those were the pitches effectively. But it's not clear to anyone that the Carney government actually got a mandate, because the election was so close, to pursue a globalist anti-carbon agenda, or whether this whole election was just a reaction to the most terrible campaign by conservatives that I can possibly imagine. There was a post on X election night that I saw from a conservative influencer in Canada, because Poilievre lost his seat and lost the election, which should not have happened. And she wrote, anyone who thought the CPC, that's the Conservative Party of Canada, would turf Pierre after his election should really understand two things. The CPC has the best popular vote since Mulroney. And we will go to another election within a year. Pierre is safe. The most popular vote since Mulroney. That's like, do you remember when the Hillary Clinton lost to Trump, and she said, "Wow, like this is all fake because we won the popular vote." Do you remember that? And everybody said, "Ah, we need to get rid of the electoral college. This is all bullshit." Well, this is the same type of thing. Oh, we did really good on the popular vote. We actually lost the popular vote on the conservative side in Canada, but it was close, and it's never really close. So that part of it is true. I responded with my own X post that kind of went viral in the context of my followers, because I don't tweet about things very often that are current, where the energy is. I tweet about things that I want to tweet about, and maybe no one's paying attention, so they don't go viral. But I just replied, he ran the worst campaign in memory and lost his riding, which is true. Again, for our non-Canadian followers who don't pay much attention to the Canadian elections, you know, you don't really technically get elected prime minister. You get elected to be the leader of your particular riding, your electoral area. And if you get that, then you get a house and you get a seat in parliament. And if you have a seat, the party that wins the most seats is the government, and they can pick and choose who they want their prime minister to be. That's exactly how we got rid of Trudeau and got Carney as prime minister without any election whatsoever. And don't email me, don't DM me and say, well, we had an internal election in the Liberal Party to select the new leader. That's not an election. That's not going to Canadians. That's going to your own followers to pick somebody, which is legit, but let's not pretend it's election. But now he's won an election. So I said he ran the worst. Poilievre ran the worst campaign in memory and lost his riding. And that went, for me, that was pretty popular post and still going this morning. Why? Why do I think that was the worst campaign in memory? Because Poilievre failed to show any leadership whatsoever. How many times have I said it on this show? Like 100 times? Like every morning that I'm on the air, I come and I say, oh, he's not leading. Over and over, I've told you that. The conservative curse, and I think everywhere, I think is true in the US with the Republicans as well. Not with Trump. He broke the curse. But the conservative curse is that it is so obvious. It is so obvious to just mainstream conservative people trying to get up and go to work and live their life, look after their family. It is so obvious that the other side is malevolent, narcissistic, greedy, sometimes corrupt. It is so obvious to the conservatives that that's what the other side is that they don't even think they need to do anything in an election campaign other than point that out over and over. That is a Republican campaign. The Democrat sucks. That is a conservative campaign. The liberal sucks. They don't provide any plan, leadership, hope. They don't lead. They don't lead. And that's what Poilievre did not do. He had the opportunity because Trump tariff issues came along way before Carney came along, and he had the opportunity to step up and provide a plan like some of the provincial leaders did. I think they were shit plans. I think they were stepping out of line. I think they probably did damage to the Canadian cause, but they did step up and lead to the best of their ability. And Poilievre didn't. He hid. He absolutely hid. And so push comes to shove. Carmen comes along. He says, here's what I'm going to do about it. And Poilievre just said, Cardi bad. Do you remember when they did the hot swap and brought in Kamala Harris in the US? And Trump floundered for like 4 or 6 weeks, saying, "Oh, he's just like Biden. She's just like Biden. It's the same people. It's the same policies. It's just as bad." And he just dropped in the polls, and she skyrocketed because nobody believed that. And Poilievre did the exact same thing. He did the exact same thing. He literally had a slogan, just like Justin or something like that. Anyways, he did the exact same thing, but Trump pivoted. That wasn't working, so he got on the offense and started showing leadership and a plan. You may not like the leadership. You may not like the plan. You may think I'm a fool for even talking about it. You know who you are. But he pivoted and it worked. Poilievre never pivoted. He never provided a plan. Prediction. What is my prediction for Canada? For Canadian businesses, I don't see much changing. It's the same government. It's the same policies. It will be more competent. I mean, Mark Carney is not a stupid person. He's very well polished. He's been in the business elite world. He's an economist. He's not a drama professor, which is what Trudeau was. It'll be a continuation, however, of the relative decline of Canadian wealth and competitiveness. That's what's going to happen. That's a lack of sugar kicking in. I can't even talk. That's what's going to happen. It's just going to be a slow drag down. I'm going to get on future shows some charts, if I can, of the Canadian decline in GDP and wealth, relative decline versus the US. I've been telling my wife for years, it's shocking to me when I'm speaking or traveling or doing business in the US, hanging out in Miami with friends. It's just like, it's like you're going to the promised land. The wealth there compared to what I'm used to here. Like, I'm not complaining. I do very well. I'm great when I go there. It's not like I'm complaining about the cost, but it's shocking the energy and the wealth and the decadence that's going on in the fortunate parts of the US. There's a lot of have-nots in the US as well, probably more so than in Canada. Anyways, that's what's going to happen. We're just going to decline. Other things of interest from the election: Jagmeet Singh, leader of the Socialist Party, the NDP, got crushed. He lost his seat. He resigned. And it's clear that all Canadians blame Jagmeet for supporting Trudeau for so long in a minority government. So if you're the government, in that case the Liberals, in this case the Liberals, you either have a majority, which means if everybody votes, just like in the House of Representatives, you can do whatever the hell you want. But if you don't have to get 50 plus one, but if you don't have a majority government, you have a minority government, it means you govern with the support of somebody else. And the natural partners on this are the Liberals, and which is Mark Carney's government, and the NDP, which are the socialists, because they're all pretty left anyways. and nobody's really steering towards the middle. And so that's the natural thing. And the Trudeau lasted so long, he would have been out years ago, except the NDP government kept supporting him. And they say, well, we got some stuff. We negotiated some stuff in exchange for supporting him. But clearly, Canadians still think that the stuff that they got was enough to justify the entire collapse of Canada under Trudeau. And so there you go. And here we are again. Carney has has a minority. And with the NDP support, which isn't very much because they only won a few seats, they just get over that majority level. And so once again, they need the NDP, or they have to partner up with the Separatist Party, the Bloc, literally a federal party that wants to break up the country. That's literally their mandate. They don't care about anything else. And so that'll be interesting. Prediction, I think this government's going to fall within a year. I think someone, a political scientist listening to the show, may in fact tell us if Frank Corenti cigars, thank you for the care package you sent me. I've been enjoying those cigars recently. And so thank you for joining. Like, if you guys don't know, Frank Corenti is the last Canadian manufacturer of cigars. They're located in Toronto. You can look them up, Frank Corenti Cigars, and you can literally walk in there and you can see some old posters of people, famous people. I won't drop names because some people don't like to be associated with that. But if you're in there, you can see pictures of them smoking cigars. It is pretty cool place to go, and you can get good quality, freshly manufactured cigars, and they're kind enough to me that they ship them out to my mountain home here, so I don't even have to go across the country to Toronto to pick those up anymore. So that's a cool thing. I do love my Frank Corentis. What else happened in this government? Oh, so they're going to fall within a year. That's my prediction. It's too slim of a minority. We're too divided. Quebec doesn't want energy. They want to partner with Carney to not have energy. The entire West needs energy. The country's manufacturing base needs energy. I just don't think this is going to last. What else? Just of interest, the People's Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier, who has become a little bit famous or infamous for being on podcasts like the Patrick Bet Davis, PVD podcast. What else was he on? Oh, a little show called Martinis with Scott. He was a guest on this show, which you can find on YouTube years ago. He's the founder of that party. And I think it's over. I tweeted the other day that the People's Party has always been a fundraising machine. And that's now finished because Maxime cannot live off a base of 139,000 voters. The whole point of this party, as far as I'm concerned, yes, there's ideological leanings. He views the other two parties as being the same, and he would be different and very libertarian. I get all that. But at the end of the day, this is about raising money and staying in the business of politics. And I don't know how you do that off 139,000 votes spread across the entire country. That was a disaster. He was predicting 1 to 2% of the vote, which, the party has never won a seat in parliament. So it doesn't have a say that way. They're decent on social media attention, but I think their messaging is off, as evidenced by 139,000 votes out of the whole country. And so I think they're done. That's my prediction. I don't see how he fundraises off of this. And if you can't fundraise, that's sort of the end of it. All right, let's move on. There was a LinkedIn post by a Holly, Holli, whose last name I will not even pretend to try to pronounce. Moeini. I'm not even going to try it. Moeini. Anyways, she made me laugh with her post because it was exactly what we were talking about with lenders and intermediaries in Calgary last week. Adesla, what are scope of making a positive profile? I don't know what that means on LinkedIn, but thank you for participating. If you want to clarify that question, maybe I can address it. I just don't know what that means. Where are we here? So Holly made me laugh with her post. She says she appears to be an accountant financial advisor similar to what we do at my company, Sinclair Range, says, why I tell every buyer there is no balance. If there's no balance sheet, run. And then she goes, this is her post, 3 weeks, thousands spent, had a deal that would have destroyed my client, her client being the buyer. We had a broker, we had an LOI signed. Then he called me, better late than never. First meeting, no balance sheets, just a P&L that could not be reconciled to the tax return. The seller casually admits he's running expenses through another company. He gets agitated when I ask for the other company's tax return. The balance sheet finally arrives. It's a disaster. Huge balances tied to other entities that would be intercompany transfers. Nothing balances. Straight up financial funny businesses. The kicker, the seller is a CPA. Here's a truth bomb, she says. Holly says, never sign an LOI without seeing the balance sheet. If there are dead bodies, they are buried in the balance sheet. True. And in inventory predominantly. And if the seller doesn't have one, you already have your answer. That was her post. It really made me laugh because I was literally having that conversation in Calgary, as I said, with lenders. I said, how often do you see an Excel spreadsheet income statement, not generated from an accounting package, but literally an Excel spreadsheet? And you get, when you ask for financials to do a deal, that's what you get. You don't get a matching balance sheet. You don't get full statements. You don't get something printed out from or downloaded from an accounting package. And the soul is asking you about how I can make an attractive profile in my product. Okay, let me come back to that. We'll see if we answer that question. And so you can't. And so I said, well, like, how often do you see that? Just the one statement. And they said, oh, all the time. All the time. One guy was telling a story about how he asked for aged accounts receivable detailed. So you need to, like, he's an accounts receivable lender. So he needs to know, okay, here's account number 1, account number 2, account number 3. There's the aging. I can see all the invoices. And all he's getting is a summary. Why? Because there's no accounting. There are no controls. And so I like Holly's post. It made me laugh because I see it every single day. And that is the perspective of a buyer, is what she was talking about. But as a seller, is it the same thing? It's absolutely the same thing. On the sell side, you cannot sell your business without information. Maybe you could sell it really, really cheap because you suffer from not having the information, but you can't do a deal if you cannot survive due diligence. I talk to clients all day long, every day, till I'm blue in the face, explaining that. Remember, the theme of 2025 on this show is defense wins championships. Evading taxes, not doing your accounting and evading taxes may help in the short term, but it kills the value of your business in the long term. You just can't buy a business where you can't rely on the financial information. And at the end of the day, we used to say this when I was a young professional in investment banking. On the sell side, you're trying to sell a business. The partners and the managing directors above me, we used to say, there are no stupid purchasers. You may start off tricking people and trying to get away selling something and covering things up. But in the end, eventually, they're going to hire somebody smart enough to figure all that out, like this buyer did. Finally called Holly, and Holly killed the deal. And that's what happens 100% of the time. So as a reminder, there's a link in the notes that Sinclair Range, my company, does provide outsourced accounting and CFO services. And that's directly related to this point. So if you're thinking of a transaction, give us a call. Give us a call and we'll see if we can help you out. How can I make an attractive profile for my product? Yes, you keep asking that. Let's talk about Steve Jobs on branding. I'm with Heather Jane on Instagram. Thank you for joining us. So I saw this on I think a TikTok. It was a cut of Steve Jobs being interviewed, and I thought it was pretty cool. I like people talking about branding because everybody has a different view of what branding is, a different attitude about how to define it. I have my own, but who the hell's going to argue with Steve Jobs when it comes to branding? And this was what he said. People talk a lot about brands, To me, a brand is one simple thing, and that is trust. One word, trust. Customers trust you, and so brands are like bank accounts. You can have withdrawals and you can have deposits. So if a customer has a great experience, they buy an iPod and they love it, that's a deposit into our brand account in their mind. And if they buy something from us and they have a bad experience, then it's a withdrawal. And so if we have a good brand, that means that people are trusting us to make great products and give them a great experience. That's what we try to do. We focus on basic stuff like that. We don't spend a lot of time talking about our brand, and I would add a lot of money talking about their brand. They spend a lot of time talking about how do we make the best products in the world? How do we make the best buying experience in the world? If something goes wrong, how do we service a product in 24 hours instead of, a week? How do we take care of customers? And if we do that, then customers will have great experiences with our products. But I think, says Steve Jobs, that people run around worrying about their brand all day long instead of worrying about their products. He says, I don't think those people get it. I love that. I love that a lot. You remember the Bud Light controversy with Dylan, whatever her name was, on the can, and Bud Light sales just crushed. They just dropped. They were crushed, and they've never really rebounded. They've lost market share. It's a real problem, and they're starting to come back slowly a little bit. I haven't paid too much attention to where it's at. And everybody said, "Oh, well, woke is broke and all that sort of stuff." I said, "This has nothing to do with woke. It has nothing to do with Dylan on the can. It has everything to do with violating trust. A brand," I said, "is a promise. And what people are buying, what guys are buying when they go to a bar and they have a couple of beers with their buddies, is they're buying an escape. That is the experience. They're trying to just forget about their troubles, forget about the world, and have a beer with their buddy. That's what they're doing. And then what do, Bud Light, is you throw current politics and woke agenda into that experience of escapism, and it just burst the entire bubble. They broke the trust. I'm not trying to say that that's bad. The woke or the Dylan issue, I got no issue with that. But why did everybody react so viscerally? It's because you broke the trust. That's exactly why. And that is what Steve Jobs is saying. I'm going to talk more about brands on future episode. Not every brand wants to be the very best product in the world. Some of them want to be an okay product that's cheap. Some of them, that's their market, that's their target. Some of them want to be an okay product that is reasonably priced, but super convenient, or maybe high price and super convenient. And so you have to define your brand, and you can't mix those up. You can't say, "Oh, I'm going to sell a BMW that looks like crap and is really, really low cost to compete with a Kia." That's not going to work because it's not the brand. The brand is defined by, in that case, price and prestige and all those sorts of things. So we'll talk more about that in the future. How can we solve market crashing and falling? You cannot solve that. You need to accept that that is reality and behave accordingly. That's what you need to do. And you do that by focusing on priorities. Look up content that I've put out on managing and leading in a crisis. That's exactly what that is about. And I'm speaking I'm doing a keynote at the end of this month in Calgary on some of that as well. There was a post on LinkedIn yesterday I liked from our friend Rob Fraser at Outweigh Socks, explaining how tariffs really work. Outweigh Socks, by the way, is in Victoria. They make the world's best sporting socks. Nobody pays me for these endorsements. Rob, I do not even get a pair of socks every now and then. I think maybe you ought to be doing that, shipped to my house conveniently and not too flashy colors. Anyways, Rob says that tariffs are paid by the importer of record, then passed on to consumers because the companies cannot afford to eat the margin hit. absolutely right. I won't go into that detail because I've talked about that a million times on this show. What I responded was, that's absolutely true. And I suggested that rather than raising prices, I used to sell something for $10. Now I sell it for $12. Instead of that, consider adding a surcharge on the base price called the Trump tariff. You could literally brand it Trump tariff. And what's going to happen? And so you get from 10 and there's a $2 tariff, and now you're at 12, where you needed to be. You've passed on the cost to your consumer. But the world's going to break down, as we know, into Trump haters, and they're going to see this $2 tariff. They're going to go, oh wow, I guess, like, I hate this. I have to suck it up. I have to pay this tariff. But I do want to support this company because they're obviously against this as well. And it's not their fault they're getting hit by this trade war. And the Trump haters will pay the tariff. And the Trump lovers are going to happily pay the tariff because it says Trump on it. And they're going to think this is an important thing and it's going to solve and restructure global economic trade. That's the whole point of it. And so you win both ways. Trump haters will pay the tariff. Trump lovers will happily pay the tariff. Just changing your price from 10 to 12 doesn't accomplish that. But adding that surcharge does accomplish that. And so that's one way to do it. And then the beauty is, if this whole tariff thing goes away, you can remove it. You can remove all those surcharges in the future. Yes, of course, you could just drop your price back from 12 to 10. But this, to me, is great branding and great marketing. Where are we? We're running out of time here. Let's go. Well, that was my idea. I've told you that before on surcharges. In the Wall Street Journal reports that Amazon was considering doing exactly that. They were going to display how much import charges would increase prices on their website. And then, of course, they got, so that was a trial balloon. We're going to try to do this and see what blowback would come. Well, a lot of blowback came. The White House press secretary says such a move would be a hostile and political act. We should just hide it and shut up. That's hide these price increases and shut up about it. Don't brand it as being our problem. And Amazon just backed down and said they were just considering it, but they never did it. And maybe Amazon cannot do this at their size, but you can. It'll work for sure. I promise you it'll work. We used to do this back in the day on fuel surcharges when fuel prices went absolutely crazy. Like, we didn't want to raise our prices, but we would add a fuel surcharge on top. And then when markets in the fuel side came back to more reality, we dealt with that. You remember, I'll just wrap this up quickly, when commercial real estate was dead? Do you remember commercial real estate as an investment? Downtown cores, everything's dead. Well, the Wall Street Journal reports Deloitte's, the massive global accounting firm, has committed to a massive swath of prime Manhattan office space. Accounting consulting giant Deloitte has agreed to lease nearly 3/4 of a planned New York City office skyscraper. Well, there's not even built, the skyscraper. It's a new build. Prominent signs yet that the upper end of the office market is heating up. They committed to move their North American headquarters into Hudson Yards, that's in Manhattan, the sprawling master plan development on Manhattan's west side, according to people familiar with the matter. I love those people familiar with the matter. The more than 60-floor tower will be the largest ground-up U.S. office development to start construction since the pandemic. The firm's going to take 800,000 square feet of the 1.1 million square feet of the new tower. The demand is recovering. We see right now, this is the first build since the pandemic of any significance. The demand is recovering as companies have insisted that more workers return to the office. Vacancy rates, which touched record highs during the early years of the pandemic, have been falling in Manhattan and other U.S. business districts. It's coming back. Commercial real estate is coming back like it always had to be. If you're an investor, if you're just enjoying going downtown, this is great news. This is great news. So consider that. That's all I have for you today. Let me just go through comments and see if there's anything that I need to discuss here. Oh my God. Can you tell us how to set a product setup? Okay. All right. I don't think there's anything I need to respond to. Remember, theme of 2025, defense wins championships. Reach out to us. Check the link in the notes for the course, for coaching, everything to help you get through all of these questions that you have. Aid Sola. All right. See you Friday.